and Principal Counsel of the Ground House of Law, President of Hesman Foundation, an NGO that has worked with physically challenged children and orphans since 1998. He's recognized for his ability to communicate effectively and an avid believer in restructuring, wealth redistribution, education, entrepreneurial training, infrastructure, and technological growth. He'll be speaking to us today about building a new and prosperous nation. Please welcome with me Christopher Mustafa Wakobia Jr. And I must say that I like those combination of names. Professor Chris Mustafa Wakobia Jr., convener, Country First Movement, who is our guest today. My first question to you, Chris, is how did you come about the name Mustafa? Reminds me of my good friend and son of the great mathematician, Mustafa Chikiobi, who was my senior in school. How did you come about that name, Mustafa?
Well, good evening, Pastor. It's my pleasure to be on with you. The last time I was with you on the same stage was in Port Harcourt during the South-South fundraising for Peter Obi's campaign. It's my pleasure joining you.
Please go ahead. You're breaking a little bit.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I said the last time,
a little bit. If you could speak up a little bit.
Okay, the last time I was with you was in Port Harcourt during the South-South fundraising for Peter Obi. We were on the same stage. I addressed the gathering the same way you did. But it's important and interesting to, first of all, start by making Nigerians understand that combination of names was providential, Pastor. It was when I was in detention in 2002 under Obasanjo's administration. And in our battle for an egalitarian society where the rights of the people are recognized and respected. And so whilst I was in the DSS facility, I wanted one of the staffs to help me reach out to my family to tell them that I was okay. And he protested and said, by name Daniel, he protested and said that there was no way he could do so because it was against the rules of service. And well, I was a bit melancholic and I had to sleep because I was arrested on Christmas Day, moved to Abuja on the 26th. And this happened the week after. I asked myself why I was comfortable in detention, and my wife had put to bed 3 months before I was arrested, and who knows how she was doing. So I wanted someone to reach out to her to tell her that I was doing okay. Daniel said he couldn't do anything. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Daniel said he couldn't do anything. So I went to bed in the detention melancholic. In the morning, a certain Musa appears and says, "Oh, where's Christopher?" That's my name. And they said, "Oh, he didn't eat yesterday. He's protesting." And then he came to my room at the DSS facility called Delta Base in Abuja and asked me what had happened. I said I needed someone to reach out to my family to tell them that I was okay, considering the way I was moved from Lagos to Abuja. And he said, "Oh, there's nothing he can do. This is the DSS, except the DG orders them to do so. There was nothing he could do." And, well, I had to rest. But later in the evening, he called me and said he will do something, but he doesn't know exactly what to do. And the morning after, he comes to me and says, "Do not tell anybody anything, but this is what I want to do for you." And then he helped me get across to my family. I won't put the whole details there. And I asked him why he did that. And he said that Almighty Allah, I don't know how he appeared to him and said to him whatever that man wants you to do for him. And that his name is Mustafa. Mustafa means sent by Allah. And I was surprised that my Christian brother Daniel wouldn't do it, but my Muslim brother Musa would help me out. And when he finished, I said to him, "Okay, so what else? What do you want from me?" He said, "Well, take that name." Uh, that was how in 2002 Mustafa became part of my name. It's in my international papers. It's not, and that is because I've come to believe that God, in His uniqueness, teaches us lessons about our humanity, and God, in His uniqueness, has placed Nigeria as His bastion for a new world, His bastion for a new Africa. And since 2002 up until now, Mustafa is the name. I go by the two strange names, Christopher Mustafa Nwokobia Jr. And I believe that God uh, is at work in our country, and I believe that we belong together. I believe that Nigeria is not an accident, it's not a coincidence. And that will, except you have another question along that line, that will take me basically to the topic of today, which is very dear to my heart.
Please go ahead.
Please go on. Go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
When we talk about Nigeria, there's something beautiful about this country that excites me. In the Holy Book, there is this dictum that says, "The cord of two not easily broken, the cord of three who can break." I have studied quite a lot of history and found out that in historicity, most nations that are the cord of three are almost impossible to put aside or to break up. I'll give you quick instances as I deal with the subject of today. The United Kingdom, for instance, is a cord of three: the Saxons, the blacks, and the white. The United States of America, the Aborigines, the blacks, and the whites. Australia, the Australoids, that's the Aborigines, the black and the white. South Africa, the Afrikaans, the black and the whites, that's the owners of the land and the black and the whites. And Nigeria is a unique cut of three. So when I hear people talk about, separatism, I hear people talk about, I'm a Yoruba nationalist, I'm an Igbo nationalist, I believe in IPOB, I believe in Biafra. I don't have a problem with it. What I think that we must do as a people is to situate where these differences have become. At what point did these differences become plausible? At what point did we make the mistakes that have made separatism attractive? And I have told people who care to listen that this country is not just a cut of three. You have three major tribes: the Yorubas, the Igbos, and the Hausas. This country is a cord of super threes, and I want to shock you. And I hope my listeners will follow attentively, understand that we're not just an accident of history. We are God's craft for greatness. We're God's craft for a wonderful Africa, and we're God's craft for a new world. Fundamentally, apart from the three major tribes, if you look at our map, you see the map drawn into three by the river Benue and the river Niger. And then there's a big north, there's the south, old southeast region, and then the old southwest region, the cut of three. And then besides that, you have a major cut of three tendencies. One is a religion. We have Christian religion, we have Muslim religion, and we have traditional others, and very importantly, when we look at how these things span, one other thing that comes to mind is if you were to pronounce Nigeria, it gives you three vowels, Nigeria. And I say to people who care to listen, and this is why today's meeting is very important to me, that oftentimes when we think about secession, division, separatism, when our brothers who profess Yoruba nationalism, when our brothers who are in the north who are saying, okay, if you're not satisfied with Nigeria, we can go our separate ways. our brothers who believe in IPOB agitate, ask this deep question: why are we so concerned about the fruits of a tree? Why are we so concerned about the flower of a tree? Why are we so concerned about the leaves rather than the root of the tree? Because we're where we are because successive administrations have shown a proclivity for selfishness. Remember, we had a first republic that was largely successful until egocentric politicians they took over the stage and messed up our politics. Do not forget that we had a boisterous, very rich country in the First Republic. It was even that rich until 72, 73, when at some point Gowon said our problem wasn't money, our problem was how to spend it. And he had to bail out Trinidad and Tobago and a few other countries with monies that this country had made. And then you ask yourself, why are we where we are? And the basis I've laid is only to tell you that togetherness, because everywhere you go to, I hear my brothers, the same people who are talking about the need for a separate Southwest, Southeast, proudly say that Nigerians are the most intelligent immigrant community in the United States of America. They proudly say that Nigerians are the smartest immigrant community in the United Kingdom and several places. We're proud to say this, but we forget that when we break up Nigeria, we won't have that line of pride. So what must we do to fix our country and to make this country great again? The first thing is to understand that there's somewhere in the Holy Book that says that if the foundation be destroyed, what can the righteous do? And what does it mean actually? If the foundation be destroyed, if the basis of a union be shaky, be messed up, if we're unable to form a strong platform on which we engage, then no matter how wonderful those who politic on our political amphitheater are, there'll be a lot of problems. So what we must do, and that's what brings us to the next level. How do we make our country great again? I want to say that oftentimes in discussing our country, some who have said, okay, we're tired of this country, we're tired that things are not working, forget that this is actually God's greatest gift to mankind. Whilst I was growing in my teenage days, I remember there was a Benin preacher, very popular and charismatic, Reverend Bishop Idahosa, who told a story about his trip somewhere, and a preacher talked about Africa having the shape of a gun and Nigeria at the trigger point. I remember my mentor, Nelson Olich Lala Mandela, who said that Africa is waiting for Nigeria to rise up to reach its pride of place. So Nigeria is instructively important for a new Africa. Nigeria is at the core of a renascent movement for a new day, a new deal, and a new dispensation in leadership. So what you're doing with this series is to inspire, help Africans and nations in Africa recalibrate, help a great country like us, Nigeria, reach its pride of place. And I want to say first that we must identify where we perhaps got it wrong, because to get to the next level, we must identify where we are. We're at that point where leadership has failed to inspire hope. We're at that point where leadership has failed to put our people together. We're at that point where leadership has largely failed to appropriate our resources for greatness. And so Nigerians are despondent. But interestingly, even in this despondency, Nigerians are asking for a new hope. They believe that things can actually get better. And in the political process of the last 20 months, Nigerians showed a willingness to chart a new path for our citizens and citizenry. Unfortunately, we know, but that's not what I'm here to discuss. We know what happened And we know the Nigerians back again are despondent, angry, and perhaps frustrated. But the question is, which way out of this morass? And I want to say that I am not here to lament. I am here to tell Nigerians what we must do as a people to get out of the morass, promise, and how we must unite, organize rather than agonize, and take our country away from the jangling discord of poverty, disease, and despondency to the place of promise. What we must do to turn our country right around and make Nigerians truly proud of God's greatest gift to humankind. Like I said, I'm deeply, deeply passionate about this code of three. I am deeply, deeply passionate about what we must do to show Africa the way to promise. And if we understand that things have gone bad, then the first thing to do is possibly try to locate where we got it wrong and try to fix it. And in the 1960s, when we had the Republican Constitution, and I hope my listeners are attentive because it's very important to locate some of these points. We had a Republican Constitution. We had regions that were largely dependent on their resources and had large control of their resources. So what it did was inspire some kind of patriotism and commitment to growth and progress. In that first republic, we had monstrous wealth from cocoa. We had amazing resources from palm oil, palm produce. We had wealth from coal. We didn't have this kind of darkness across our country. We had hope that this great giant was indeed going to lead Africa to the new world. Unfortunately, this will bother you. Those who came believing that Nigeria could do better and who were so angry that we had corruption, they called it 10%ers, upturned our political space in January 1966. And those who inherited power messed up with our federalism and institutionalized a unitary system. So much happened afterwards, and then we had a civil war for 30 months, and so many things went wrong. Now, the question is, understanding where we got it wrong, must we not work together to fix it? You know, oftentimes you hear Nigerians say, oh, it is with the name Flora Shaw. Lord Lugard's wife gave us the Niger area, gave us a name that didn't suit. Some will say, oh, the British programmed us to fail. Some will say, oh, our system is unworkable. Some will blame the Lord Lugard amalgamation of 1914. And I said to you and to Nigerians who are listening to me, so many countries in the world were colonized and they've come off the bend of the programming to greatness. So it's time up blaming the past. We must wake up to the urgency of now. We must cease to make the fruit, the leaf, or the flowers of a tree the challenge and get to the root of it. I have told people who care to listen that in the politics of 2022, 2023, all the major candidates spent so much time addressing the fruits, the leaf, and the flowers, never strongly addressing the foundation. And like I quoted the Holy Book, it says that the foundation be faulty, what can the righteous do? No matter how much you want to do great, if you don't have a right foundation, you will fail. And so the Nigerian constitution is largely a lie. Pastor, is largely a lie, people. You cannot say that we, the people elected to have a constitution when the people did not really have an input into it. That's point number one. Point number two, the structure is absolutely defective. You cannot say you have a federalism. Now, I'm laying the foundation because I will tell you what we can do to make things right and quickly. the foundation is extremely faulty. You don't have a rent-seeking and a rent-taking enterprise and think that this country will be a huge success. No matter how much we have, no matter how much righteousness we have in the space, remember that the children of Israel have seen miracles and signs and wonders. But at some point, it was necessary for the Almighty to give them a law through Moses. Remember also that our brothers who believed in the way and the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be unto him, saw the miracles and the overthrow of Arabia, the teachings of the apostles of peace be unto him. But it took Prophet Muhammad, peace be unto him, the responsibility of bringing out the laws, the process of Islamic living. Outside the Quran, he had to give to them the hadith. There is naturally, for good conduct and for greatness, the need for laws. Let me give you an instance. Those who founded America, in the opening, in the intro to this meeting, I heard you say that we need a national manifesto, if you like, a national dream, a national vision. Those who founded America were bootleggers. They were drug barons. They were criminals. But you know what? They got up together in 1776 or so and said they must put a country with a manifesto and a charter of faith. And they must make laws that will govern their society. And they made a declaration: we hold this truth to be self-evident, that all men were created equal and given the right by God to pursue happiness. There was a charter of trust. What have we done about our country? We have politicians whose manifesto is me, myself, and I. Where's the Nigerian dream? Where's the Nigerian manifesto? Since 1966, when they messed up Republican federalism, nobody has woken up to address the foundations of our nation. And we think that this piecemeal, we make this law, we make this law. We must get back to the foundation and address the fundamentals. I'll give you a practical instance. The South is saying that we are tired. The Southwest is saying we're tired. The Southeast is saying we're tired. And our brothers in the North are a bit ambivalent. The Hausa Fulani and the Hausa man is tired. The Fulani man is dominating him, and all kinds of ethnocentric tendencies building and messing up our country. And then you ask yourself, but in the First Republic, were these tendencies this fierce? Don't forget that we had the pyramids of granite in the north. We had sesame. We had amazing wealth, heights and skin. Don't forget that in the Midwest, in the Midwest, we had where we are from. I'm an Igbo from Delta State, so geographically I'm called a Southerner. And then we forget that when we fail to address the fundamentals of our nation, every effort to revolutionize our nation fails, because a rent-seeking and a rent-taking enterprise will not succeed. I'll give you a practical instance. If you were to allow, like the Republican Constitution of 1963 posited, the South to control its mineral resources and pay 20% tax to the federal government, 30% tax to the federal government, and a 20% for revolving support to other areas, you find out that the people of the South Side who hold leadership in the South are responsible and responsive to themselves, to their people. I'm getting to the issues. If you were to have, you have gold, you have columbite, you have tantalite, you have a nickel, you have lead in the north, you have lead in the north, you have so much wealth in the north, and then you have massive land. If you were to allow the north control her resources. Monstrous wealth. So many people fail to remember that in actual fact, the North is richer than the South. But people don't know because our lazy political operators will not address the fundamentals. And until these issues are addressed, it was Khalil who said a long time ago that no lie can live forever. For so long, we have lived a lie in Nigeria. We lead a lie. It was one of the greatest poets of all times, Russell Lowell, who said, "Truth forever on the scaffold, falsehood forever on the throne. That same truth sways the future. For behind the darkness, the dim unknown, stands God in the shadows, keeping watch above his own." Truth is fundamentally important. William Bryan said something that is very fundamental, and I hope my listeners are taking note of this, because if we must move this country out of the morals to promise, we must address fundamental issues of nationhood and our state. We cannot continue to wish that angels come and take this country away from this dysfunctional system to promise. We must fix the structure. If you get 1,000 Peter Obis, 1,000 Atiku Abubakar, 1,000 Atiku, 1,000 Tinubu, if the structure is defective, there's nothing anybody can do. So we must make a conscious effort to fix faulty structure. And it is easier than Yoruba nationalism, easier than Biafran agitation, easier than the Hausa Fulani conflict and dichotomies. We must wake up, and this is point number one. Talk to our lawmakers, parliament, to stand for the people and speak up. Ask for the restructuring of our country along the lines of true fiscal federalism and devolution of power. You cannot take this country away from the morass to the next level without fixing the structure. A defective structure will yield defective results. We must rebuild the fundamentals and the structure of this country and make it competitive. Make Nigerians believe in their country. I'll give you a practical instance. Growing up in the 80s, we had this cliche: everybody's property is nobody's property. In Nigeria, a Tamuno, for instance, owns a land that has oil, and Abuja says, "I'm in control of your land. It belongs to me. I decide what happens." That doesn't happen anywhere in the world, not even in Ghana here, where the state has been able to raise a sovereign fund for every Ghanaian in the wealth that has come out of Ghana. What we need in this country is to rework our constitution to drive patriotism, to drive ownership. If, for instance, I'm from Delta State. Delta State for almost 20 years have been receiving the highest allocation. What do you have in Delta State to show for so much wealth? If you ask the governor, what are you doing with our resources? Do you know what he tells you? He says Abuja gives me what he has an alibi. Those who pretend our nation have an alibi. The alibi is Abuja. When you take away the alibi of Abuja and have a system where you devolve power and you have control of resources, the people will be able to hold their leaders responsible and responsive to them. So what am I trying to say? No matter how much we preach about the need for good men to ascend our political space, if the foundations are not right, it will be difficult to perform. I'll give you another practical instance. I told you about those who formed America and how they were able to give to themselves laws that over the years, they have even reworked and reworked. Initially, blacks could not vote, women could not vote, but thank God for Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and those who agitated for the freedoms that the Constitution of America allowed. And they got several amendments, and today we have some level of inclusivity. Even Nigerians are mayors, Nigerians are congressmen in America. That's because they made to themselves laws that gave to every American right of ownership. What am I trying to say? We must look at how we thin down the control of a meddlesome center. We have a federal government that controls everything, including the newspaper that is bought for the federal government college in Ejaniki, including the newspaper that is bought for the federal government girls' college in Benue or so. So we have a federal government that is meddlesome. We have a federal government that controls just about everything. So what do? Men who truly did not care about our country seek leadership and have held our country down. If we must move to the next level together as a great country, we must rework the basis of our union. That way, the man who talks about IPOB will understand that Nigeria is ready to live true to her dreams. The man who talks about Yoruba nationalism and separatism will find out that in Nigeria we can have great expression because through control of resources, the pyramids of cocoa will return. The wealth that gave the Southwest the cocoa house, and remember in the 60s, the Southwest had television before the state of France. That was because we had a structure that was working. Remember that the North had great institutions. Ahmed Bello and several other places were established. The Kaduna Airport, the Kano Airport, from wealth from granite, sesame, heights, and skin, because they control their resources. Today, you ask yourself, where's the wealth from granite, heights, and skin? Where's the wealth? Where's the pyramid of maize, sesame? It is because we threw away our competitive structure for a rent-seeking structure. So if we must make Nigeria great again, if we must work together to have a country that works, we must individually, Southwest, Southeast, South-South, North-Central, Northeast, Northwest, insist on our lawmakers returning to the National Assembly and moving motions for a constitution that recognizes the right of the people to control their resources. That's one of the fundamental things we must do, the way forward. We must insist that we have a law that recognizes the right of our people to control their wealth. And we must also understand that together we can reach great normatives that will allow for, if you have oil in the Southwest, in the South-South, you contribute 30% to the center and 20% for devolving in times of emergency or when any region has a problem. But you control your resources at least 50%. That way, no governor in Rivers State will say to the people, Abuja is holding back, because this structure is a precursor to corruption. Some people say, oh, how do you deal with corruption? You can't deal with corruption when you have a corruptive and corruptible system. You can't fix a nation when you have a system that engenders and encourages corruption. If you were to have the best of men in the saddle, they will fail because you have a meddlesome and overwhelming, a cumbersome federal government. Nowhere in the world do you run such federalism or federation. So the time has come for us as lovers of due process to begin to speak to our lawmakers. If you have a forum where you advise and talk to people, if you have a church, if you have a mosque, if you have a village setting, begin to talk to your lawmakers. Every dream about making Nigeria great again will fail if we do not overhaul the structure.
Okay,
we must have a structure that encourages patriotism and commitment to the well-being of our nation.
Thank you, Prof. My name is Sonny. Sorry I came in a bit late. I'm co-anchoring this with Jumoke, and maybe if Pastor Ito can, he will join us. Thank you very, very much. I mean, you have spoken. We're almost like in a lecture room listening to the Prof. I dare say that you're a very popular figure on Nigeria Airwaves. and your views are well known to many people who watch and know your political views and your stance on issues. And, just listening to you, sort of rekindles hope. But I think the question really is, how do we organize to engage and bring about this needed change? That is the journey that we have been on. And how do we really organize? I hear you say we must hold our legislators accountable, make them to do what we want. If they don't, how do we organize as a people? What do we need to do step by step if they resist? Because the political class have captured the entire system because they control resources. So I think what we really need is, how do we trust ourselves? Even when you are trying to organize, somebody says you are from Delta. The other man, the Benue man, doesn't trust you. The man from Kano doesn't trust you. The political class keep it that way. So what we are looking at is, how do we organize as a people and necessarily compel our leaders, legislators, to do these things you are talking about that will lead us out of this quagmire?
Very, very important question there, because every time I talk about these issues, those who truly care, those who truly love our country, come up with this number two. Let me say this, that you have rightly noted that the challenge is not about ethnicities. It's about, Nigeria is actually a conflict between the political class and the people, and whenever there's conflict, they drum up ethnicity and religion. And thank God for Pastor Itwa and several other people who came up with this platform. Let me tell you, there are three things we must begin to do. If you're in the church, if you're in the mosques, in civil society groups, begin to reach out to your lawmakers. Ask them three fundamental questions. Okay, look at the instance of the events of the past 3 months. Nigeria has consistently borrowed more monies. Lawmakers took to themselves 160 million naira worth of vehicles. And the naira is on the consistent free fall, and nobody is addressing the fundamental issues of nationhood. And at the end of the day, we have Yorubas, Igbos, Hausas in that National Assembly. So who truly cares about you and I? When it doesn't fit their billing, they remember that you are Igbo, they remember that you are Hausa, they remember that you are Yoruba, and then they begin to talk about pan Igbo interest or pan Yoruba interest or pan Hausa. So what must we do, like you noted? We must begin to form cooperatives, agencies, movements, and begin to call for a rework of our constitution. I tell you, there's a group, NINAS, is doing theirs. Igbohodem tried to do what they call Yoruba nationalism, but that's trying to cut the fruit from the tree from the fruit or the leaves. There's a fundamental issue that if we fix, which is the foundation, these problems will die naturally. We need, one of the things we must call for is a Republican, a parliamentary system. This American-type presidential system is too cumbersome and too expensive. Some states do not have up to 130 billion to spend per annum. About 460 Nigerians in the name of lawmakers in the Federal House of Representatives and the Senate spend more than that. So what must we do? Fix the superstructure. Engage, we have lawmakers everywhere. Engage them. Go to their constituency office and tell them, because there's a provision in the Constitution, we must give life to our Constitution. I told somebody that it's cheaper to give life to even this defective Constitution by threatening to recall our members than to ask for Biafra. It is cheaper to push a lawmaker from Lagos to move for restructuring. It is easier and cheaper than to talk about Yoruba separatism. It is easier to push a lawmaker from the north, showing him that he's actually richer than what the man in the South has in the name of oil. There's uranium, there's tantalite, there's gold. There's so much, there's lead, there's so much wealth everywhere in this country. And so we do not have to be a monolithic enterprise. The time has come for us to address the fundamental issues of nationhood. Begin to write to your lawmakers, engage them. We have to begin to have more forums like this. Tell them to stop the lie. Because truth crossed to earth will rise again. It was in 1960s, early 60s, that Nigerians talked about Republican constitution, and the regions controlled their wealth. About 60 years after, this truth is rising again. Nigerians cannot look at, they just told you yesterday about 27 point something trillion budget. And so you still want to continue to buy newspapers. There's a federal government college in my hometown of Ibuzo in Delta State. You still want to continue to buy newspapers for that school, toiletries for that school from Abuja. Who does that? How can you succeed that way? So fundamentally, the next level of a united Nigeria needs an organic rework of the superstructure. We must begin to engage. For me, whilst thinking about this forum, I thought about what I call the movement for a restructured Nigeria. We must begin to reach out.
Exactly.
Pastor Itua has a responsibility. Jumoke has a responsibility. I have a responsibility. Nigeria is God's greatest banner for a great Africa, so we cannot break it up. It's a super chord of 3 threes. It cannot be broken up. So what must we do? We need to rework the foundation of this nation and make it responsible and responsive to our citizens. We must give to the Nigerian citizen her rights, citizenship rights. That was what Martin Luther King Jr. of blessed memory fought for in America. He talked about the check of nationhood. Every Nigerian has rights to this nation. Not a few men in the National Assembly who are spending billions of our resources to no good. I think that the way to great and a successful Nigeria is to begin to engage our lawmakers effectively, engage the leadership effectively. It is beyond calling for separatism. The way to a new day and a new dawn is to begin to talk about a nation that encourages competition. I want to see the return of the wealth of cocoa. I want to see the return of the pyramids of granite. I want to see the returns of heights and skin. I want to see palm produce become again a revenue earner. Look at Malaysia. It is said that in the year of my birth, 1971, Malaysia came here and took palm oil seedling. Malaysia makes about $50 billion from exporting palm oil. And here we're talking about, and then don't forget that even now they're using palm oil to run vehicles and run engines. And here we're talking about a monolithic economy that begs and taxes oil. I think that the time has come for us to wake up to the urgency of now and challenge leadership to responsible and responsive action. We must start with our lawmakers.
I absolutely agree with you. We have to start with our lawmakers. I want to put before you some of the ideas that has come up, in trying to put all of this together and how do we move forward. Some people have said, we, the civil society, the middle class, the various associations, NMA, NBA, and all of that we must form a coalition that gives rise to something like a people's parliament, something like an alternative government, where we will meet online. So if the House of Reps say they want to buy a car, the parliament will meet and debate, and that debate can be online, and say the people have said, yes, we can buy a car for you, but what we can afford is a Tokumbo Toyota Corolla for each House of Assembly member, and this is the thing. And there will be a broad debate about it. And we can appoint our own ministers also. So if the Minister of Aviation says, I want to buy our own Minister of Aviation can make the research and say, we have found it at this rate, or we do not need it, so that we can begin to provide that kind of opposition, not the opposition that is what is existing now. But the issue is who puts all of this together and bring it to bed. The idea looks nice. I don't know what you think. So that anything that the government comes up with, if it's not what we want, we can then put forward an alternative to what can be done. And then the people can vote. It can be online, so that nobody is saying, oh, it is just Chris and his friends that have sat down to come up with this. I don't know what you think, or if it's something you can think about, give it more thought, and let's see how we can galvanize that.
I agree completely with you. In line with that, you're sounding like a prophet or a clairvoyant. In line with that, I actually have an X handle, the Twitter handle, where I have the name Shadow President. The reason I did that is because if we don't come with alternative views, then we're conquered people, and it is not defiance. I agree completely that, and that's where I'm challenging the clergy, the Muslim clergy and the Christian clergy. People like my dear big brother, Pastor Itwa Igodalo, has a lot of people under his congregation. And where, it was Martin Luther King Jr. Who talked about the dream that he had about an America that recognizes female rights to vote and the rights of the blacks. Years after, a boy of African descent from Chicago, Illinois, Barack Obama, stood at the Capitol Hill and told Americans that he was a fulfillment of that dream. I know that the dream for a great Nigeria, not a separated Nigeria, is a reality. I know that the cord of three is unbreakable. And I believe that the way to challenge, let me give you an instance. When this issue about the 160 million naira car came up, I gave an idea as to what should happen, what can happen. And the Labour Party that I, through the political process of the past 20 months, I had some sympathy for and I worked with and I belonged to. I said to the lawmakers that instead of receiving 160 million for a car, why not ask for a locally made car, a Nigerian made car? We have companies that make SUVs in Nigeria now, about 5 of them. Why not take delivery of SUVs made in Nigeria? That way you can create jobs. That way you can keep the monies in Nigeria rather than buy SUVs from China or Japan. And then the most expensive of these SUVs will be like 50 million. And then you have 110 million that you can pour into constituency projects. That's immediate challenge. Why not just do that and let this government know that you care about the workers? Because the manifesto of the Labour Party talks about creating jobs. But you know what?
No.
We have a political class, a divide, is a dichotomy between the political class and the people. Do not let anybody deceive you about the difference between anybody who has taken an oath of office under this constitution. Now, what must we do? Like you noted, we must have a shadow government. In the parliamentary system, you have a shadow cabinet. We must create a fora of people who will rather organize than agonize and begin to put before this country solutions to our problems. I have said that wishing that you have good men to pretend over this country with a defective constitution is like a wait for Godot. If Peter Obi had become president after the last election, some of us supported him because we believed that we could make him, put the pressure on him to do certain things. Not necessarily because this constitution can make him a great president. You can't be a great president when you have a rent-seeking and a rent-taking Nigeria, where your system and your constitution does not encourage hard work, where every month 36 states come to Abuja for handouts, when you have monstrous resources across the space called Nigeria, where you can exploit your resources for greatness. No, nothing works that way. So I think that, and I totally agree with you, we can continue to network. This is bigger than just any other platform. We can continue to lay foundations, reach out to each other. I will get across to Jumoke, I will get across to Pastor Ituai Godalo. Our challenge for a new Nigeria that works, a Nigeria that makes real the promises of democracy and the promises of greatness, not only for our citizens, but for Africa, becomes a reality. So we must put our hands on the plow to the bridge, dear friends. We can truly make our country great again, and peacefully too, because, the intellectual engagement makes greater premium than the sight of the Saladins or the machine guns. So I think that what we must do as a people is to begin to work towards having what I call a shadow government that will say to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, rather than borrow 8 trillion and spend 7 trillion servicing the debts. That's the reality of the budget they just submitted yesterday. We can begin to drive our regions and our zones and have them control their resources. Kogi State, with all the mineral resources, can exploit her resources for greatness. Nasarawa State, with so much resources, can exploit her resources for greatness. The Southeast, with amazing resources everywhere, can exploit their resources for greatness, and competitively will contribute to the center for greatness.
Thank you very much. I guess we are in the solution mode right now, and whatever we challenge the government that they are not doing well, there must be an alternative that we are presenting to say, this is not the way to go, this is the way to go. And because we are laying the foundation for a good Nigeria, for example, I have not seen anywhere where it has been properly articulated, for example, that this government is wasteful. They say they want to buy cars for the First Lady's office, the president wants to buy yacht. We should be able to come up with alternatives and say, you don't need this at this time, because they say, look, they are our employers, or we are their employers, sorry. We have employed you. We determine what we can afford for you. You cannot have children out of school and then you are drinking champagne of 500,000 with your friends in the night. And this is not just about the federal government. This goes down to all the states, because the states are another kettle of fish altogether.
Oh, horrible.
So the question really is, we concentrate a lot on the federal government. The states are running riot. How do we organize at state levels? Are there people interested in just their states or in their local government? Can this be replicated down? Look, it's going to cost us money, it's going to cost time. And I know that everybody is hustling in Nigeria trying to get what they will do, one thing or the other. But we must take time to know how much is coming to this local government, how much is coming to the state every month, both from the federal allocation and internally generated revenue, and all the various other ways and means they use to get money, so that then we can begin to determine and say, this is how much at your disposal. These are the schools that need fixing. These are the hospitals that need fixing. This is what the people want to do. I don't know, we really need to, like you say, organize, not agonizing. We are past that stage of shouting. Every day you go on television, you're on AIT, you talk. That's all about it. So what can you do, sir? And I know your voice is strong, though you are partisan, you are a labor man, but you can still join the civil, you are part of the civil society people also. Practical step, are there people you can reach out to within your network to say, like, this is a great idea, can we join ALG? Can we begin to put some things together and let's move the needle?
Let me say very importantly that in my opening, I talked about the perennial attempt to cut this tree by plucking out the flowers, cutting the leaves, and perhaps not deeply looking at the roots.
Yeah.
You know, oftentimes I've heard people talk about, oh, the governors, my state government has been receiving billions, for instance, every year. And you come to Delta State, you see very little. Same with most of the states of the South and the Southeast. But you know what? We have a system that gives them an alibi. What if you come to them and they say to you, oh, they didn't give me all the money, they gave me part of the money. Now, should you have a system where the state governments are but beggarly appendages of the center? Should you have a system where the local governments are dysfunctional? Local governments should be the engine room of growing wealth and making sure that states function. But here we have a system that allows the governors to emasculate the local government chair. And what must we do, like you noted? I also said that rather than agonize, we must begin to engage. There must be levers of engagement. With a forum like this, the African Leadership Series, the Nigerian Leadership Group, we can begin to talk to our people, engage with the civil society groups. And just like what we did a few years ago when we came by the Not Too Young to Run bill. Remember that in 2011, I ran for president at just about 39-40. And thereafter, we began to push for the Not Too Young to Run bill. Thank God for Tony Nwulu, Samson Itodo, and co. Sitting in engagement, the power of the people is stronger than those in power. And we must learn to effectively, albeit peacefully, engage leadership. You can get your governors responsible and responsive when you actually know that this is how much they get from Ekpe, for instance. This is how much comes in from Badagry. This is how much comes in from Ikeja local government. Not when the federal government is actually in control of almost every tier of governance. I'll give you a practical instance. There's nowhere in the world where you have an exclusive legislative list that has as much as about 66 items. This federal government is involved in just about everything. So we must push for a rework. Our first lever of engagement is to push every lawmaker in this country, your House of Reps member, your senator, to come back to Abuja when they resume and begin to talk about resource control and true fiscal federalism. If all of them push for it, our nation will begin the process of an overhaul of our laws. I am very positive about what the power of the people can achieve. Now the corruption comes from the center. That's where you hear about individuals amassing trillions of. Look at the issues about what is in the news about the former CBN governor, about the group GMD of the NMPC and all that. Look at what is in the news everywhere. What we need is the regions to control their resources and contribute to the running of the center. The center will control resources, will control monetary policy, defense, and foreign policy. And then we have regions that are responsible and answerable to the people. Only when that is done can you have a Delta state that is truly prosperous, a River state that is truly prosperous, a Zamfara state that uses her resources for greatness. Only when we agitate organize and push through this normative. And I believe that from this platform, we can begin to effectively engage. I am a die-in-the-wool optimist. I believe in the power of the people, and I believe that, like Khalil said, no lie can live forever. Those who keep saying that Nigeria cannot walk are making a terrible mistake. This country is God's potentially greatest country. And I believe that if we engage effectively, if we challenge, because interestingly, the converse side of the coin is the fact that the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria today, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was one of those who was involved with us in pushing the narrative for restructuring. So we can hold him to it. We can begin to challenge the senators to it. And like I said, it was in Senegal or one of the African countries recently that they pushed for the abolition of the Senate. We can have a unicameral legislature. We can go back to a parliamentary system. There is nothing that the people who are united cannot achieve. So in talking to you and Nigerians who are listening to me today, I'm coming from the foundation of faith that there is really nothing that we set our hands to do that we can achieve. And I'm saying that it is easier to achieve a great republic, a great nation united, than to go our separate ways, because this is a cord of three. And a cord of three cannot be easily broken. This is a cord that will reach amazing fulfillment, amazing greatness. And together, if we engage effectively those who, as it were, are presently elected as senators or selected, elected as House of Representatives or selected, elected as president or selected, whichever way you see it, if we engage these people effectively, albeit peacefully and proactively, we can reach certain normatives faster than thinking about separatism or secession.
All right. Thank you very much. Pastor Chris, let me put it that way. We will begin to take a few questions. The way we handle things on this platform is that...
Can you speak up, please?
Okay, we're going to take a few questions now from those on the platform so that we engage with our speakers as we get their views. Some will agree with you, some will challenge your views, some will just ask questions directly, some will make comments. We can take 2 or 3 of them together for you to respond. And to handle that segment, I would allow Jumoke to call those that will be fielding questions. But before we go there, I don't know whether you spoke about the budget that the president recently presented to the National Assembly. Very audacious. The first time we are seeing it this high. Question really is, how do we intend to generate that revenue? It's easy to just say, this is what we want to do. Do you think that budget is achievable? Do you think it's realistic? Is it doable? What is going to be different in your view about this budget before we go to other questions?
Well, I listened to quite a few experts in economics, and they are apprehensive, they're worried. One line that I took off from some of the analysts was that you're going to be borrowing about 8 trillion at some point, and then you're going to service it with about 7 trillion. So, and one of the experts said it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And but like I said again, when we run a system that does not encourage competition and hard work, when we run a rent-seeking enterprise like ours, things will work at best in the mediocre and the average rate. I think that the time has come for our government to begin to look at how we encourage the regions and the states to thrive. It doesn't take 1 year to grow produce. It doesn't take so long to revamp your agricultural system. This is a country where you can plant and harvest 3-4 times in a year. So this government must begin to look at how we encourage the states and the regions to thrive. No nation in the 21st century thrives with a meddlesome center controlling just about everything. It is time we began to think and very quickly to begin to work on overhauling our system and getting it productive and effective.
Thank you very much. I think we'll go to a few questions and comments. There are comments on the platform and there are questions from a few people. Pastor Funke Awolowo and Anthony Young have their hands raised up. So I think we'll take Pastor Funke first. Unmute yourself. Okay, go ahead.
Right.
Go ahead with your comment, your question, or contribution.
Thank you. Good evening. Good evening, Prof. I remember years ago, and I was with Festus Kiamu, and we were discussing you, and he had so much to say about you in terms of respect, your intellect, and all that. And I remember the situation. I don't want to repeat it. I was quite alarmed that what happened then happened. But he said to me that you know what you're doing. And over the years, I've seen Festus dwindle from the voice of the nation, from being the voice of the nation of truth to what he is today. And I'm wondering, because you spoke of responsive government, you know, most of the time we can't get to the people in government. We cannot reach out to them, even though they're saying you can talk to your lawmakers. We know that these things are almost impossible. But I see that people like you, you know, because from what you said, you went to the same university, I think Ambrose Ali University. And I'm just saying, what can you do to check people like that who have dwindled from being the voice of the nation? And what's the cause? Why would, I think in British history, we did something they call resistance and collaboration. Many resisted, but at some point they had to do the collabo because the government forced their hands on them. Over time, we've seen people like Festus change completely and do a turnaround. What can be done to make such people, because you have a one-on-one with him, what are you saying to him, I wonder, or people like that who are around you, to check them, to make them resort back or revert to the truth that we've known them for? That's my question. A bit personal, but
let me say clearly that in engagement for sane society, we had a story a long time ago. It was Gani Fahimi and Oluona Gorua. Some people, I'll give you a practical instance. This morning, somebody sent me a message and said to me, how much does all this engagement, you've been fighting since you were 18, how much did they give to you? How do you cope? And would rather you're a minister from Delta State, would rather you're this, you're that. And that was what challenged me to put out a message this morning. There's an end to everything in life. Sometimes we're unable to understand that. There's an end to wealth. There's an end to good health. There's an end to food. There's an end to fun. But there's no end to legacy. If you leave a great legacy like Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., my late father told me something that's very instructive. And, you know, in answering your question, he said to me that never forget that ultimately, when every man goes down, what will stand is how much he gave to impact humankind. You can't compel people to, some believe that, oh, I need to be so and so to be able to help one or two persons. I need to do this to be able to impact at this level. You can't change people from their persuasions. You can only continue to push the society to do what is proper, right, and right. You were pragmatic in trying to talk about the events of the NNPC problem and all that, and my ordeal in jail, and how at some point he was even in jail with me because of certain statements he made. But I've been out of jail for over 20 years now, and he's pursuing his passion the way he considers best. But I believe that the best way to make Nigeria work is to have a structure that is responsible and responsive to the people. If you make me a minister today, how much can I do when you have people who are running a rent-seeking system, ministers in Abuja who are in Abuja and they are concerned about what happens in my village? When you have a local government and a state government, it's an anathema. It's wrong. So much as I believe that my friends who are close to power and who are in power have their persuasions, I think that the best way to make Nigeria work is to overhaul this defective superstructure. If the foundation is faulty, no matter how well-intentioned you are, I remember that during the campaign, at some point, I teased Peter Gregory, the candidate of Labour Party, and asked him, if you're going to run Nigeria with this superstructure, how much success do you think you can achieve? That's the question here. If you want to run a system that provides for notebooks for Federal Government College in Janiki, that provides for newspapers for Federal Government College in Ibuza. You run a federal government that is interested in tying roads in Eket or in Karu Namuda. A federal government that provides medical care in Kapanchan. How can that system be successful and effective? Not even in China. Google China, a communist China. Do you have the Chinese, the Communist Party checking everything that happens in Shanghai? There are structures and levels of control that must make systems work.
Workable.
Until the superstructure is effectively reworked, every expectation for a nation that works will be like a wait for Godot. You know, I did say, I put it from the Bible, that scripture that says if the foundation be faulty, not the words, what can the righteous do? It means that even if you have the best of man, if you have a faulty foundation, they will fail. So the time is now for us to converse and engage for a structure and a foundation that is responsible and responsive.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anthony Young, thank you very much. Anthony Young, on YouTube.
Good day. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. First of all, thank everybody for coming and thank y'all for the invitation. My name is Anthony Young. I'm a commodities trading advisor over here in the United States. So I'm calling you from the United States. I am from the economic side of the equation. I hear what you're saying, sir, and I hear some of the comments from others. Okay. In my opinion on economics with political strength, if your group finds a way to increase its self-financing platform amongst your areas, your government's going to have to listen. So I'm coming to this group on the economic side. I have been to Africa. I have been through Nigeria. I have formulated a company in Nigeria. I am interested on the economic side, meaning your governmental security bonds and infrastructure financing. I would love to receive more information on a series of talks that the professor is going to be organizing, because I would like to share some of my financial knowledge around what it is that you may need to help boost your economy from the private sector, not the government sector. And I heard Professor Christopher's talk about the private sector and opening up competition. Yes, I have hit my head against the wall on several of your banks because several of your bankers may not have the knowledge in where I come from. I grew up off of the floor of the exchanges in the United States. I grew up off the financial aspect of organizing structured products from your agricultural to your metals to even your energy. Okay. I have to come at this approach because in the US, you're going to find very few brothers that may attain some of the knowledge and understanding I have from the financial side and the fixed income side of finance.
Sir, can you round up with your question? Do you mind rounding up with your question, please?
My question is, okay, if this is going to be a series of groups, I'm going to say I would love to be able to touch whoever is the primary organizer so I can make sure I'm in your circle to continue on following this discussion going forward and working with whoever may be in the financial aspects of Nigeria and over there in the banking or your securities market.
Okay. There is a form in the chat room that you can fill out so that we can have your contact information. And then one of us will engage. And if you want to contact a professor directly, we can also put you in touch with him. So I just posted the link to the form in the chat room again. Please go ahead and fill that so that we can have your question. We can have your contact information. So we have two more hands
Jumoke,
up.
Jumoke,
Yes.
let me add to,
Okay.
I hope Pastor is here. Pastor is still listening. It's very important we engage with these people at the level of organizing because we're not just going to talk and end with the talk. We have to engage with Nigerians in the diaspora and those who truly are committed to ensuring that peacefully we challenge leadership to responsible and responsive action, that peacefully we begin to challenge our lawmakers and executives to responsible governance. Because whether we like it or not, apart from restructuring our nation, the private sector, like he noted, is the engine room of economic growth anywhere and everywhere in the world.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, we definitely would engage. I would like to engage Mr. Anthony Young, and we do have a diaspora pillar that is working on what the diaspora can do in collaboration. So there's a lot that is going on that would be sharing. And I think he did bring up a very good point of the finance and economic side of it. That in itself is a series, and there is the global presence or the global partnership or collaboration. So we'll definitely be taking him up on that offer to engage him more and see how we can collaborate to kind of highlight some of the things that he has brought up. So the way we usually do this is to take a group of questions at a time, so that way you have more, you can take more questions. So right now we have 4 hands. I'm going to take Chinyenye Henrietta, and then Miss Toun Ajibade, and then Professor Grange. We'll take those 3 together, and then you respond to those questions, and then we take the next set, if that's okay with you. Okay.
That's all right.
Okay. Miss Chinyenye Henrietta, please, can you ask your question? I believe we've asked you to unmute.
Yes, I'm just unmuted. I'm Chinyenye. So my questions are this, or is it observations? Call it observations. I think our fundamental problem starts from our Constitution. The Constitution, as little as it is, in terms of the size of the book, I think it contains some elements of mischief. Let me tell you one that everybody is aware of. This FCT thing. What is the status of the FCT? Is it left ambiguous so that when it suits politicians, they sway it to themselves? Or can't it be ironed out? Because it looks like a toy, a pawn now with the judiciary. That's one. One begins to wonder, are our politicians really sincere? Then, yes, that's the FCT. Then the NYSC. A number of lawmakers have tried to propose that they scrap it because the situation in the country does not favor the NYSC anymore. I think it has outlived its usefulness for now.
Agreed.
Yeah, because young ladies in particular get slaughtered on the road. People go missing, and some people are there profiteering. Is that the correct English? Making huge profits from the NYSC program. Of course, the uniforms have to be sewn. Contractors are waiting. Food has to be served. Contractors are waiting. And I don't want to talk about the ring of people that are involved in all these contracts. That's another one. Then the cost of governance, you've addressed it to a very large extent. I think the number of ministers they have is over bloated. We don't need ministers of state. It looks like appointing ministers now is job for the boys. You've done me well, you helped me in my campaign, come and take your own position, come and take your seat. I think that is where we are at now. It's not really whether it's useful or not. A minister that has been mentioned here a few times once said that he was just jobless for the 8 years that he was in office. It's heartbreaking. And then people are hungry on the streets, and we hear every day trillions, billions budgeted for renovating houses, for purchasing cars. Can Nigeria ever be fixed? It is heartbreaking. How do you think we can get Nigeria working? Because it's, as it is, 6 generations from now, we'll pay debts from all these borrowings that we're using to buy cars, to renovate our houses, to pay for yachts, to fly jets, for my son to have a party in the air and all that. It is all taxpayers' money and borrowed money. Is there any hope? What do you think?
Thank you. Thank you. Can we have Ms. Toun Ajibade, please?
Yes, good evening, everyone, and well done, Professor Chris. I'll take you back to 2014, 2015 elections. I observed an anomaly, and I sent a text to your lawyers for change. And immediately, I saw during the next set of elections, during that 2015, the change that I requested was effected, and the party you were supporting then actually did better than the first set of elections. Where I'm going actually really is that it was just between me and you. I observed something and I sent a text message. You don't know me, I don't know you, and you did the right thing. So what is it going to cost us if all of us will really decide, okay, this refuse disposal, I don't like the way it's been done. I can talk to the next person who talks to the next person, and we get the change effected. By and large, the country will do better. So I think it's left to us being really intentional and making our desires, what we really want about Nigeria, very simple and achievable. I think it is the better. And together, indeed, we can take Nigeria to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that was a comment. So we'll take Mommy Grange with her question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Chris.
Thank you.
Many of us have arrived at the same conclusion that you have given us today. But we, even in that knowledge, we have been unable to find a way out of the mess that Nigeria is in. But you've given us a formula. That is, we all come together and, make our desires known to the government as a resistance group. Now, where we were in 1966 is quite different from where we are now. Considering the geopolitical activities, in the world, the global, what I feel is that the world is actually capturing Nigeria. They are telling us that, oh, you can play a big role with your oil and all that, and our politicians are listening to them. And so they are going to resist giving up that what they think is an advantage to them, to Nigeria, but it's actually just an advantage to them personally. It is not an advantage to Nigeria. So how do we let them know that we are a nation under captivity, and that at the end of the day, what matters most is our country, that we need to get our country back, and not the individuals, because even with all their wealth, as you said, they will come to an end. So the legacy of getting our country back is what we want to let them know about, and encourage them to hold on to that policy of working for the country and not for themselves. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Do you want to respond to those first set? Then we'll take the last two questions and then we start to round up.
Okay, let me address the first set of questions. The mischief, like my sister noted about the Constitution and the FCT, the truth is that when you look through the Constitution, some of those mischiefs were deliberately orchestrated by political office holders and operators. Nigeria is like their pot of porridge, and they want to manipulate everything for their own good. If you look at the provision for 25% of votes cast in Abuja, the schoolboy understands what the law says, but those who believe that you can snatch it, you can run with it, manipulated the process. But that's by the way. I've told myself that the period of lamentation is long gone. What we must do is set out, like a topic of today's series, to move to the next level, which is how best can we organize as a people and together move our country to the next level. And I believe that the power of a people is stronger than and mightier than those in power. And I believe that we can proactively engage, albeit peacefully, and challenge leadership to do the right thing. And that's where it brings me to the NYSC thing. You don't decree unity. You don't force unity. You show examples in leadership. So I'm one of those who believe that the NYSC has long outlived its usefulness. You send our brothers and sisters to Yobe, to Borno State, and they're either kidnapped or mowed down in the quest for the very tiny instances of, oh, someone got married to another person in camp, an Igbo boy got married to an Hausa, a Fulani girl, and vice versa, are not the fundamentals of unity. What will inspire unity in our countries when our people learn to understand that we are one great people and leadership is responsible and responsive to us, and children are taken care of, and they are not caused to, by reason of failure of leadership, to drop out of school, when infant mortality is heavily reduced, when people are trained to work, and this nation that is programmed to fail is reprogrammed for success through a structural reappraisal and recalibration of what obtains here. So I essentially believe that if we must move this country forward, we must show the people that they matter. It's not necessarily about having people wear uniforms and jumping from Sokoto to Enugu. You don't decree unity. You don't live a lie and expect people with all the NYSC, look at what we're discussing today in Nigeria: bigotry, ethnicity, religious divide, and the like. So you don't force it. When leadership, when nations become responsible and pillars of love, pillars of togetherness are built up because those who superintend our nation care for the masses, then you will have love, you have patriotism, you have values that unite rather than values that divide. And that's what draws me to the issue about, she talked about ministers. We have an overbloated federal government because those who superintend Nigeria do not care about the nation. You cannot say you want to grow our economy and then you have several people drawing down on the recurrent expenditure. How many ministers does the United Kingdom have? How many? About 12 in America. Here you have about 40 something. Does it make sense? Where is the resources? How much do we have? So I think that the time has come for us to begin to challenge leadership to responsible and responsive action. And that's why I believe, and again, that's my challenge to the clergy, because they have the highest followership, the Muslim clergy, the Christian clergy. I want to see more of people like Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., and that's my challenge to my big brother, Pastor Etwa. I want to see people like Louis Farrakhan. That's my challenge to the Muslim clergy. I want to see people who will exemplify and epitomize the call of their people for responsible and responsive governance. And this can be done peacefully. We can write to lawmakers, write to the president. We can call for a meeting with the leadership of the National Assembly, meeting with the governors, meeting with the president to articulate these issues. At some point, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, between the year of our Lord 1999 and 2007, was preaching about restructuring. We can remind him about it. The time has come to make our country effective, efficient, and effectual. And that is by ensuring that we restructure this country and make it efficient. What I'm talking about is simple. We can get the regions to control their resources. And that way you have governors who find themselves responsible to the people. Because if you know that your wealth is coming from my village leaders can go to the government house to say, we know that 100 billion came from Ibuzo. And what are you doing with it? The governor will not tell you, oh, it came from Abuja, because you know where the resources are coming from. So to curb corruption and make this country responsible and responsive, you must restructure this country. And then lastly, which is very important, and that's the last question, because the other one was more like a comment and talking about the need for engagement. We're already engaging. That's why we have the platform. But lastly, in making leadership responsible and responsive, we also must make them understand that we're not at war with them. Because oftentimes those who pretend leadership believe that opposition or the critical mass are enemies. No, we must make them understand that when we criticize leadership, we're only one leg of a patriotic effort for a new day and a new dawn and a new nation. And we can effectively, like Martin Luther King Jr. said, we show them true love, that we are fellow laborers in the path for a new nation. And we can engage with student movements, civil society groups, church groups, Muslim groups, because we're all held together by a single network of mutuality. What affects one directly affects the other indirectly. So indeed, the time has come for us to all work together and put before leadership the minimums that is necessary to make our country great again.
Thank you very much. And we'll definitely be engaging you on those practical steps to implement all the suggestions that has come forth. We'll take my brother Stephen Iqbalbo Lawson, and then Uncle Folabi, you had your hand up. Did you? Did you change your mind? Okay. I think Uncle Falabi, you had your hand up first, so we'll go ahead and ask you to unmute and please ask your question, and then we'll take Steve and then we'll start to round up. Stephen, please give Uncle Afolabi the floor. He had his hand up first. Thank you.
Okay, Auntie Vyomi.
Okay, good evening. Thank you very much, everybody. My question is very simple. Our current leaders, our legislators, right now, elections in Nigeria are basically do or die situations. And the people that really have hope and want to do service for Nigeria are afraid to come out and run for elections because the electoral bodies and election days have been taken over by pure thuggery and everything, and they're afraid. How can we get them to come out and run and not be afraid? And how can we get rid of this mindset of elections in Nigeria being a do or die and get rid of all the thuggery? That's the first one. And the second one is, I would like to hear your opinion on the recent fiasco that's going on in the Kano the announcements by the judges, the typographical errors and everything. Those are my two questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jumoke, can I respond quickly to that?
Okay.
You know, the interesting thing about the challenge that we have and the reason why so many people are unwilling to run because they either snatch it, run away with it, and the electoral umpire has largely become very unreliable. Is first, and that again takes us back to the superstructure. We have politics are just about the only big business in Nigeria, and politicians approve allowances and remunerations that are unbelievable. I don't know whether you know that in 3 months, a senator in Nigeria gets more money than the president of the United States of America. Yes. I don't know whether you know that in 3 months, a House of Reps member gets about the same thing that the Vice President of America gets. And so you ask yourself, with this business called politics in Nigeria, why would people not borrow money, run to the bank, sell their properties, mortgage their conscience to people so they can get to power and get 160 million for a vehicle and the likes? So what we must begin to do is ask for a rework of the superstructure and ensure that, for instance, a professor in Nigeria, it takes you, if you were to save all your salaries for 50 years, you may not be able to get 160 million. And here in a few days, a member of the House of Reps gets a car, not his salary. A car, what about 160 million? So we must rework the structure such that only those who are truly interested in service run for office. If you ensure, for instance, that you make the salary of a lawmaker equivalent to that of a professor, if he doesn't want to serve, he doesn't run for office. So we must rework the superstructure and ensure that only those who are patriotic, those who truly want to serve, run for office. Then, regarding the issues of Kano, for instance, I tell people that when the cliche "go to court" became the norm, it simply meant we own the courts. And so the judiciary, unfortunately, have become an institution for hire. It's the highest bidder. And that's why shamelessly, judges are beginning to pander to political interest. And like one of the former judges of the Supreme Court said recently, he said, this is not the judiciary that he worked or served under. This is absolutely abysmal. And I think that the way to get back the dignity of the judiciary is first, overhaul not only our law, but ensure that first, the man who appoints, for instance, the judge, the man who appoints the electoral umpire is not the president who heads a political party, take it up to the to either the judiciary or the National Assembly, or create, like somebody has suggested recently, have 6 zonal deputy directors of INEC, have a situation where you have a clearinghouse where an individual does not just get monies from a money bag and compromises the entire electoral process. But I believe, and that's what we have agreed in this forum, that there is need for an overhaul of our laws. If we do not ensure that the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission puts the right salaries and emoluments for political office holders, then political office in Nigeria will be what some will kill for, compromise the process for, steal monies for, loot for. And the time has come for, like I said, if the superstructure is defective, we will always get defective results. So I believe that going forward, we must, beyond this platform, begin to engage, reach out to each other, peacefully challenge our lawmakers and our leaders to do what is proper, right and right. And also go back to our people to tell them, like Plato said, that the reason vile men, the reason uncouth man should pretend over us is because good men stay away from politics. So I think that the time has come for us to begin to challenge those who truly care and work together, network, and ensure. We saw a bit of it in the 2022-2023 elections, where Nigerians, young people, contributed to fund the campaign of Peter Gregory. But like I also said, for me, it is first about reworking the superstructure, because had Peter Obi won the election and this structure remains like this, it still would have been difficult to put things right and make leadership responsible and responsive.
Thank you. So we are going to take these last 2 questions, these last 2 hands. I'm sorry, we are up on time. We can't take any more. We will take Mr. Stephen Akpalibo-Lawson and I believe Miss Olugbemi. Please go ahead, Stephen, and then, yes.
Thank you very much, Madam Jumoke. Prof, I want to say a big thank you because a lot of what you've shared are things a lot of us actually discuss in different fora. The question for me is this: we are in 2023. We've seen so many of the issues that has challenged us, and it's a good thing you mentioned the fact that we do not need to consider our fellow compatriots as enemies of the state. So we must explore peaceful avenues for us to be able to address what concerns a whole lot of us. This is 2023. 2027 is going to be the next political cycle. And afterwards, 4 years, we are going to be dealing with another political cycle. Is it possible for us to be able to design a blueprint that can help us chart a path that is practical, that is timely, that is measurable, in order to address some of these issues with regards to the Constitution, with regards to so many of the concerns that we have? Because my own fora is the fact that we seem to be in a parabolating circle. The same thing we are discussing here today, we discussed 10 years ago. If we're able to raise 20 million Nigerians who are signed up to a common charter of patriotism for the future of this country, do you think that will make more impact than too many of the discourses that we seem to have? Thank you.
Thank you. Please go ahead, Ms. Olugbemi.
Thank you very much. I must say thank you very much, Professor Chris, for all the things you said, and also the questions that have been asked earlier, which kind of echoes with what I have in mind. I'm a councillor here, I'm a politician here in the UK, and I'm extremely passionate about politics in Nigeria. So many things just go through my mind each time I think about Nigeria. And there's so many things you said, Prof, that just jumps in my mind. This is the ideal situation. This is what we can have. but how do we start to prepare ourselves? Training is absolutely key, in my own opinion. There's a need for us, just very similar to what Stephen said just now. There's a need for us to start preparing, to start training for those mega force that we would need eventually, because Nigeria cannot continue like this. It's just not possible. We've mortgaged the future of second, third generation, and the only way we can do that is to get that back. How do we start that? How do we start the workforce at the grassroots level? At the moment, the way I see Nigeria is in such a way where even, I'll say it in Yoruba for those out to interpret it, the baby in the womb already is corrupt. It's the way we think, it is our attitude, it is the way we behave when we're on a queue. It is the fact that you and I have contributed in one way or the other to the decadence that we have in Nigeria. But how do we begin to change that? I know it is possible because that happened when we had war against indiscipline. I know that within 6 months, people started to shape. How do we start to train? So we've talked, and like Stephen said just now, 10 years ago, we had this conversation. 15 years ago, we had this conversation. I left the country 22 years ago, 23 years ago, I left the country. And those were conversations we had then, and we're still having them. So there's not just a talk thing. We need to start acting now. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you take those two comments or questions and then maybe your closing remarks? Thank you.
Interestingly, I think that the last two questions captures what I said during my opening. I challenged my big brother, Pastor Etwaye Godalo. There's a lot we've got to do. Jumoke, there's a lot we've got to do. This engagement must continue. We must create levers of training where we have to talk to young boys and girls in secondary school and the universities, value reorientation, ethical rebate, and begin to challenge them, understanding the reality that a highly progressive world believes that Nigeria can get things right. And I am, like I told you before, I am one of those who believe that with Nigeria, Africa is sure to lead the new world. But we must train our people to understand that we must not do that violently. We can engage effectively. We have seen how great men did it in history, and the process has begun. With this leadership program, we can continue to talk. We can continue to create levers of engagement. We can continue to network with our brothers and sisters in the diaspora and at home, and identify those who would want to be involved. Like the first question, 2027 is next door. For most politicians, the build up to the next election begins immediately after one election. For statesmen, it's about the next generation. So we must combine the two narratives and begin to identify those who are interested in making our country truly great again. We'll begin to engage with them, talk with them, challenge people to do what is proper, right, and right. And come maybe 2025, 2026, you have a lot of young people who are truly, truly interested in moving their country forward. I believe that the task of making Nigeria great again is a collective. I believe that taking Nigeria out of the morass to the promise is beyond ethnicity, beyond bigotry. I believe that this code of super threes was created by God for amazing things. And I believe that together we can take our country to the great place of promise. But we must train young people who can collectively with us, instead of agonizing, organize to create councillors, local government chairmen, House of Reps members, senators, governors who truly believe that service is the reason power and governance exists. So I think that together we can do so much. And that's why I appreciate this forum. That's why I'm grateful to my sister Jumoke and my big brother Itwa. And like I always say to the Bridge dear friends, we can make a great Nigeria possible, and together it is achievable.
Thank you so much. Before I hand over to Pastor, I just wanted to follow up with with what you have said about us doing this together and the training. We started, Africa Leadership Group started a School of Leadership and Governance. And in September, we graduated about 63 students on the Citizens Responsibility course. And this is a training that is geared at empowering citizens with the right information about their civic duties and their civic responsibility. We also know that is a lofty goal. It's not a task that we can do by ourselves. It's something that we're looking for the entire community to come alongside with us to do. And we'll be rolling out a citizens responsibility campaign next year. Pastor Tayo Fagbenro, he's the director of training. So those are some of the things that we're doing, trying to hit the grassroots. And I'm going to speak a little bit about another campaign that is going to help us facilitate the Citizens Responsibility course, and also to demonstrate how we are also taking charge at our Tri-Africa Empowerment Foundation to be accountable, responsible, and ethical leaders. So FAN, we call it, is Feed a Neighbor, Feed a Nation, and is an initiative that wants to reach out to impoverished communities around Nigeria to offer them something, food, whether it's 1 week's worth of groceries. And we have the 3 directors here on the platform today, Professor Grange, Auntie Fumi Tomori, and Chief Tolu Igodalo. So we've been on this campaign trying to raise funds to provide these amenities. And we want to thank everyone that has donated so far. We got, someone actually donated food for 50 families by giving us 50 units of rice, 50 units of ewa, 29 units of palm oil. I will be showing that. And I would also be projecting the funds that we have raised so far, because part of what we said we were going to do is to be accountable, to show we want to start with being transparent with our finances. Tri-Africa Empowerment Foundation is a registered organization in the US and also registered in Nigeria. And what that means is we also got our 501c3 from the US government that makes us a public charity. So we have to disclose the funds we get and how we spend it. And I believe when Pastor comes up, he can speak also on the clearance we got from EFCC to prove that we are not a money laundering organization, and we are not going to be, we are compliant with financial regulations. So far, we've raised 2.5 million, 2,580,000. I don't know if everyone can see my screen. I'm just going to project my screen so that you see the numbers. Okay. So every fund that comes in, we record who sends it, whether it's from the US, from Nigeria, the date it was sent, the amount that we got, and then it tallies. I mean, we put the contacts because we are quite a few. We just use that so that they can follow up with the letters, the thank you letters, and the receipt to the donors. So our total tally is 2,580,000, $3,235.500. That is what we have as of November 28, along with the 50 units of food that we got that we would also be distributing to communities in Lagos, because that's where we got it. And through this, we've also gotten pledges. We've gotten a bakery that is going to be donating bread, and we plan to distribute that to hospitals, because we found out that hospitals, some hospitals, especially the public hospitals, are not given food. So it's not just going to be bread. We would have something, we'll complement it with whether it's egg or akara, and then a drink, and feed take that to a hospital. We've also gotten people to pledge food. A restaurant owner has pledged to give us some food that would also identify those communities that really need it. And part of why we're doing this is as we start the Citizens Responsibility campaign, we can't just go and tell them about their rights and their civic duties when they are hungry. So it goes hand in hand. We want to feed them and also empower them with the right information. So that's why we're doing this. It's not, we plan to continue. And so we're calling everybody to join us on this noble cause, to reach out to our neighbors. And Dr. Chris said something about really, we are united, and it's our own way of spreading that message of love, that reorientation that we are one people. Whether you're hungry, whether you're a Muslim or a Christian, we come alongside each other on this quest for a greater Nigeria. So we invite you to please join us on this course, on this mission, to begin to make changes in Nigeria. So thank you very much. And you have our contact. We filled the form. If you want more information about FanFan or other initiatives or the Citizens Responsibility course, please fill that form and we'll definitely get in touch with you. We'll let you know when the next class for Citizens Responsibility course is going to be starting. So my brother, Chris, thank you so much. We would engage. We are taking you up on this offer to really have clear roadmap. That's what Mr. President always says, clear roadmap of what we're going to do. And we want to hit the ground running in 2024. So you're going to be busy. You're going to be busy in the next couple of weeks as we engage on, even if it's 2 action items that we can accomplish. Come January 1st, 2024, we want to start actualizing all these things that we've been talking about. And one more announcement before I hand over to Mr. President is next week, we have Auntie Yemisi Ransom Kuti coming to speak to us about together the role of civil society in moving Nigeria to the next level. And it just really kind of summarizes everything that we've been talking about. She's the founder of the Nigerian network of NGOs, and we all play a key role, and we must come together to move this agenda forward. So thank you very much, Chris. I would definitely be engaged. We will be engaging you again. Over to you, Mr. President.
Well, we thank you, Mr. Chris Mustafa Wakobia Jr., Professor. Thank you so much for your frankness. Thank you for your very enlightening discussion. Thank you for everything. We're truly grateful for all the great ideas that you gave and all the suggestions that you mentioned. And like Jumoke said, we will be engaging you here and there to see how we can move this thing forward a little bit more. At ALG, we're really trying to change the narrative. We're trying to find how we can raise up the profile of Nigeria, how we can get everybody involved in this process, and how we can build a better Nigeria and get a lot of good, credible Nigerians involved in the process. I think Nigeria is an extremely great country. Somebody was telling me just today about the potentials of palm oil, palm kernel, and so on and so forth, that we haven't scratched the surface at all. That we have over 1.2 million something tons. We are only serving about 200,000. So just about 20% is what we're able to meet. Yet land is fertile, land is arable, land is almost lying waste. Anyway, God is going to help us drive a greater Nigeria. I want to thank everyone for staying on course and for being with us. I want to encourage all of us to please contribute towards this, our food drive. This is our food drive to feed the poor, and it's something that we want to be sustainable, to be ongoing for as long as possible. Please try and be part of it and try and encourage what ALG is doing. Very soon, we hope we'll have knocked down our community development program, and then we'll really be able to take off next year with something truly brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a very great rest of the day and a wonderful weekend ahead, and a Merry Christmas to us all in Jesus' name. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you. Amen.
Thank you so much, Prof. Bye.
Compliments of the season, everybody.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sister Jumoke, we will talk.
I'm still waiting for the 50 million naira from Abuja.
Pastor Ita, are you hearing Sister Jumoke?
I have raised it to 100 million, no more 50, because there's been
Pastor
delay,
Ita.
interest.
My brother.
Pastor Ita,
Write the check, write the check, write the check.
100 million now is now 100 million.
Write the check, write the check.
No more 50.
Pastor Ita.
Interest.
Are you hearing your sister? Oh, she's talking to you. She's talking to you.
50 million. It's now 100 million.
Falabi, don't fall my hand, oh.
Pastor Ita, she's talking to you.
No, it's you I'm talking to. I said
she's talking to you,
Falabi.
Falabi. She knows the difference between Ajidanwo and Igodalo. I think there's a small difference.
No, exactly.
I called your name Claire Neo.
It is well in Jesus' mighty name. It is well.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you all. I appreciate
Read Jeremy for me, okay? And
I will do so, Pastor.
All right, bro.
I will do so.
Thank you.
God be the glory. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.
All right.
Bless you.
Good evening.
Bless you.
God bless you.
Pastor Ekusheo.
Sonny, I'm here with Dan. Oh.
I know.
We're all over the place.
I can see that.
The heat is on now.
The heat has started.